Good morning. This morning, you're going to be using another worksheet. This one is going to have one item, the one that you're looking at right now on plotting ordered pairs. The rest of the items are going to be review from Unit 2. The format is going to be the same thing that you did yesterday. You're going to work on your worksheet. I'm going to introduce the item to you. I'm going to give you a certain amount of time to work on it. I want you to do your original work in pen, just like you did yesterday. And then take out a pencil, because when we go over the answers, if you made a mistake, I want you to correct it using pencil. Again, make sure your name is on this because you're going to be turning this in at the end of the period. So right now, you have 30 seconds. Take out a pen and a pencil. Ready? Go. Okay. So taking a look at item number 5, the directions tell you plot and label this set of ordered pairs. And remember, this bracket here indicates that you have a set of information. And plot and label, this means I need to be writing the name of the point. So the first set of coordinate points that I have is -3 5/10 and 1 5/10. So, whoops, wait a minute. Before I start putting this information in, I'm going to explain it, and then you're going to work on it. So you're going to plot these points here, and then you're going to work with the person next to you to determine your answer for part B. Compare plotting rational numbers on a coordinate grid with plotting integers. If you're comparing, you're saying how they're alike. You're also going to say how they're different. And here is the compare and contrast. How is it similar? How is it different? So the first thing you're going to do is plot all these points. The second thing you're going to do is discuss and write out your answer for how is it similar, plotting integers, and how is it different, plotting integers and rational numbers on a coordinate grid or on a number line. I'm going to give you 4 minutes for this because you need to plot your points, which should not take you very long, but then you need to think about how you're going to write out your answer. And I need a fully written answer, complete sentences, compare and contrast. How is it similar? How is it different? Okay, so Miss Andrew is going to pause the video here. She's going to time you for 4 minutes, and then she's going to restart the video, and you're going to check and see how you did. Okay, get ready, go. Okay, so 4 minutes are over. Let's check and see how you did. My first point is A, and I'm going to start at the origin, and I'm going to go to -3 1/2. Here's -3, here's -4, here's the halfway mark. So I'm at -3 1/2, and my second set of points, y, is 1 5/10. So I'm going to go to 1 5/10, and I'm going to put my dot, and I'm going to label this A. Then I'm going to go to B, and B is 3 75/100, and 3 and 5/10. So I'm going to again start at the origin. 3 and 75/100. Well, this is 3.5. 3 and 75/100 would have to be here, in between 3.5 and 4. And y is 3.5. So I am going to go up to 3.5, and I'm going to put my dot here, and I'm going to label this B. Then I'm going to plot C. C is -5/10, x is -5/10, y is -2. So again, I start at 0, -5/10, that's between 0 and -1. And y is -2, so I'm going to go down to -2. I'm going to put my point and I'm going to label that C. D is 1 and 5/10, and y is -4 and 75/100. So I'm first going to go to 0. I'm going to find 1 and 5/10, or 1.5. And now I need to go down to -4 and 75/100. Well, there is a halfway mark would be here. 75/100 would be here. So I'm going to label that, and that is D. And then E, x is 4 and 5/10, y is -5/10. So I'm going to go to 0. I'm going to find 4 and 5/10. Okay, and now I'm going to go down to -5/10. And that's going to be right. Oops. I'm sure a lot of you just went, no, it's not, Mrs. Judd. That is 4 and 5/10 positive, not negative. 4 and 5/10 for x, and -5/10 for y. And I'm going to label that E. And the last one, -4 and 5/10, and y is 5. So there's -4 and 5/10, and I need to go to y on the x-axis, and I'm all the way up at the top, and that is F. Okay, so that's your points. And again, you're making corrections in pencil if you did not plot your points correctly in ink. Now we're going to come down to your answer. Compare the plotting of rational numbers on a coordinate grid with plotting integers. How is it similar? How is it different? Well, you should have something that sounds like this. Plotting rational numbers on a coordinate grid is very similar to plotting integers. So that's how they're alike. The ordered pairs are in the XY format, and the points are placed by locating the X, then the Y values on the grid. What can be different, now I'm going to talk about how they're not alike. What can be different is finding fractional values between the integers. Depending on the scale, the fractional values are not always given. So I have to estimate a point's location based on what I know about fractions. So there's your comparing how they're alike and how they're different. Okay. Now, this tells you to reflect points A, B, and C over the y-axis and record the new coordinate points. So I'm going to go back quickly and I'm going to put A, B, and C. Go back up to where I can see the points. Okay, so -3 and 5/10 and 1 and 5/10. And this is A. And they want me to reflect this over the y-axis. Remember, when we reflect over the y-axis, the y is not going to change. The x is. This is -3 and 5/10. So I'm going to go to +3 and 5/10. But my y coordinate is going to stay 1 and 5/10. Okay. Now I'm going to go to B. Okay. Now we're going to record B. And B is 3 and 75/100 for X and 3 and 5/10 for Y. So here's 3 and 75/100 and 3/5 or 3 and 5/10. And this is B. I want to reflect this over the y-axis. So again, y is not going to change, but x will. So now this is going to be -3 and 75/100. And there's my reflection. And the other one that you were reflecting is C. -5/10 and -2. Again, y is not going to change. X will. And there's the reflection. That's C. Oops. Yeah. And there's the reflection for C. Perfect. So again, if you did not write the points correctly, go back and fix it with pencil. Now we're going to go on to actually, I should have written the points here. So let me go back and write the points in because you graphed it and then you would have been writing your points here. So it's going to be 3 and 5/10 and 1 and 5/10. So you can check to see if you wrote them correctly. And B is going to be -3, oops, yes, -3 and 75/100. And Y is going to be 3 and 5/10. C is going to be 5/10. The reflection is 5/10. And Y is going to stay -2. Okay. So now you're going to reflect points D, E, and F over the x-axis. So go back up to your graph, take a look at where you have D, E, and F, and these are going to be reflected over the x-axis. Remember, when you're reflecting over the x-axis, x does not change, the value of y changes. So take 1 minute, find your points on your graph, D, E, and F, and plot your reflection, and then write your coordinate points for each reflection. Okay, go. Okay, you should be finished now. So the points are going to be, remember, x is not changing for these. So 1 5/10 is going to stay, but the negative is now going to become just 4 75/100. Okay. Point E, x is not going to change. It's going to remain 4 5/10. And y is going to be 5/10. And f, again, your x is not going to change. But your y is going to change. Okay. So now let's go to review from Unit 2. And Marianne and her dad are going on a scuba diving trip. They leave their house, which is 45 feet above sea level, and head out to the dock to their boat, which is at sea level. Then they head out to sea and dive to 20 feet below sea level. Represent the different heights and depths they are at on their trip with a visual model. Visual model means, and if you are going above sea level and below sea level, remember which type of a model you need to use. You're drawing a number line, but is it going to be horizontal or vertical? And after you represent that information, then for part B, you're going to explain the meaning of your model. What does your model show about the differences between the highest and the lowest points Marianne and her dad found during their trip? So you need to draw a visual model, a number line, and then you need to explain what that model is representing based on what you've put on your number line. So take 3 minutes for this. Pause the video here and come back in 3 minutes. Okay, so let's look at our visual model first. I'm going to need a vertical number line. Vertical because I have above sea level and below sea level. And based on their information, they leave their house. Their house is 45 feet above sea level. Okay, 45 feet. And this is their house. I'll put an H here for house. Then they go to the boat. The boat is at sea level. So that's 0. Put a B here for boat. And then they dive, and they dive down 20 feet. So this is negative 20. And this is where they dove or went diving. Okay, so D for diving. Okay. Now, explain the meaning of your model. And they want to know the difference between the highest point and the lowest point. So your explanation should sound something like this. My model represents the distance above and below sea level. Marianne and her dad were on their trip. Their house is 45 feet above sea level. When they were on the boat, they were at sea level, which is 0 feet in altitude. When they dove to 20 feet below sea level, the elevation became negative because they were below sea level. Okay, so that explains the highest and the lowest points that they were at, and your number line represents all of the information that you have in your your scenario explained in number 1. Okay, so now we're going to clear this, and we're going to go down to Jared. Jared went out of town for the weekend. He set aside $150 in his bank account to spend on his trip. The table shows the prices of each item he purchased on the first day of his trip. Use this table to answer the questions. This shows you the amount of money that he spent, and I'm looking here to see if there's anything that says he got money from something, and it doesn't. This is all money spent. So this is how much he has to start with, and every time he spends, this amount is going to get lower. So you are going to work this out. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, so you need to keep a running total of your balance every time he purchases something or spends money. And for part A, what is the balance at the end of the day? And notice it says show your work. So on your paper, I expect to see where you have been figuring out what his new balance is based on what he spent. And part B, based on your answer from part A, explain what happened to Jared's bank account. So take 4 minutes for this. You can work together. You each need to write it down, and remember, you're writing your answers in ink so that if there is something that you need to fix, you will be able to go back and represent it in pencil if you need to make changes. Okay, so pause the video here, 4 minutes, and come back after that. Okay, you should have all of your work done. So now let's take a look and see what your calculations should look like. He has $150. He spent $55. If he spent $55, that means he's taking it out of the cash that he has, so you're going to subtract. And he has $95 left. The next thing he does is buy some toys, and he spends $30. So we're going to subtract $30 from the 95, and he's going to have $65 remaining. Then he buys souvenirs for $40. So we're going to subtract out $40, and he's going to end up with $25. Now, he's going to buy sunglasses for $35. So let's think about this. If he only has $25 and the sunglasses are $35, he's short $10. So he probably had to borrow $10. So he is in a negative balance. He has -10. And he's going to owe somebody $10. Now, he's also going to buy some food. And he's going to buy $20 worth of food. That means he needs to borrow $20 more. So he borrowed 10. He borrows $20 more. He now has a debt of -$30. The other way I could show this is plus -20. Okay, we're not getting into adding and subtracting integers in 6th grade. So if you're looking at this going, I don't get it, that's okay. Just know he had 25. The sunglasses were 35, so he's $10 short. That means he has a negative 10. And then he wants some food. He doesn't have any money, so he borrows $20. Now he owes somebody $30. So your answer here should be negative 30. And based on your answer, explain what happened to Jared's bank account. He is overdrawn. He spent more money than what he had in his account. So if he's writing checks for this, the money that he's borrowing it from the bank. And he owes the bank $30. So he's writing checks. He doesn't have money in the bank to cover the checks that he's writing. And most banks, if you owe them money because you overdrew your account, they're also going to tack on some fees. But the situation here doesn't tell us if he has to pay penalty fees for that, but that's usually what happens in real life. So if that's what you got, good job. If not, remember, use pencil to show your corrections. And now, I'm going to take a look at this one. Evaluate each statement and decide whether it is true or false. Put a check mark in the true or false column to show your answer. Remember, when you have items like this, you need to check every single line. Don't go, well, if it's false, I'm not going to put anything. You have to check either true or false. Okay? So a debt of $150 is a positive 150. Well, we just saw the situation with the checking account and Jared overdrawing his checking account. So if you have a debt of $150, that is not a positive. That's a negative. 32 degrees below zero is negative 32. 7 electrons and 2 protons are a negative 5. And 750 feet above sea level is negative 750. So take a look at those remaining 3 and decide if they're true or false. Take 2 minutes, discuss them with your partner, and then check back in at the end of the. Okay, so let's take a look at this. 32 degrees below zero is a negative 32. That's correct. It's below zero. 7 electrons and 2 protons. Remember, we said electrons have a negative charge. Protons have a positive charge. So if I'm looking at a number line, there's 0, there's 7, 6, 5, 4. These are all negatives. 3, 2, 1. These are all negative numbers. And I'm at negative 7. And I have 2 protons, 1, 2. My answer is going to be negative 5. So yes, that's correct. 750 feet above sea level is negative 750. Remember your vertical number line. If it's above sea level, it's above 0. If it's above 0, it is not a negative. Okay? I have no doubt you got all of those correct. So now, Stuart encountered the following question on a test. What is the opposite of the number 5 9/10? His answer was The opposite of 5 9/10 is 9 5/10. You have two things to do with this. Analyze his answer. Take a look at what he is giving for his answer here. Write a critique. Critique means you're going to explain if he's correct or not correct. And if he's not correct, identify and correct his errors. If you're writing a critique, you should have more than just one sentence. And then you're going to create a visual model to support your reasoning. Okay? I'm going to give you 4 minutes for this. And remember, you're going to analyze, write your critique, and then a visual model. So pause the video here, and you're going to come back in 4 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay? So let's check and analyze his answer first. He said the opposite of 5 9/10 is 9 5/10. So his reasoning is incorrect because the problem asks for the opposite of 5 9/10, which is a negative number. The opposite of 5 9/10 is going to be a negative number. The errors that Stewart made were two. First, he switched the position of the numbers from 5 9/10 to 9 5/10. Second, he did not make the value negative. The correct answer should be negative 5 9/10, not switching the numbers. Create a visual model. Well, you're going to have a number line. You're going to have 0. And on that number line, I'm going to have 5 9/10. Okay, and I want the opposite number. Remember, opposite numbers are equidistant from 0. So if I get to 0, I need to go another 5 9/10 past 0 to get an opposite number. Okay, and there's negative 5 9/10. 5 9/10 spaces here, 5 9/10 spaces here. And there's your visual model to support your reasoning that the opposite of 5 9/10 is negative 5 9/10. And again, I'm willing to bet you got that one absolutely correct. So, number 7, we actually have 4 parts. So let's take a look and see what you're going to be doing for this. Veronica kept track of how much her cousins grew over the summer. The table shows the growth of each one in inches. In the space provided, create a number line and label the growth of each cousin. So that's what you're doing for A. B, write an inequality that compares the growth of Stacy and Sam. And then you're going to write your answer. And then write an inequality that compares the growth of Stacy and Jesse. Remember, if you're writing an inequality, you're going to use a less than, greater than, or equal to sign. And part D, which cousin has the greatest growth in inches? Can this person's growth be the opposite next summer? And explain your reasoning. Can you have opposite growth? So instead of growing, you're shrinking. Is that possible? So take 5 minutes, create your number line, write the inequalities, and then answer if in fact someone can have negative growth. Okay? For 5 minutes, pause the video and come back at the end of 5 minutes. Okay, so let's start with our vertical number line. Okay, and it says to create a visual model for all of the growth. So I'm going to put 0 here because I don't have anyone with a 0 growth. I have Patrick with 25/100th of an inch, so he grew just a little bit. He grew a 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and then we have Sam, who grew 1/2 an inch. Remember, this is in inches. And then we have Ronald, who grew 3/4 of an inch, or 75/100ths of an inch. Okay, and then we have Stacy, who grew 1 inch. And then we have Jesse, who grew 1.5 inches. Okay, so your number line should look something like that. Okay, and you could put the letters for the name if you want, or you could put the letters over here. So we'd have Jesse, Stacy, Ronald, SA for Sam, and Patrick. Okay. Now, you were asked to write an inequality for Stacy and Sam. So I need to look at Stacy's growth, and I need to look at Sam's growth. I'm comparing Stacy to Sam. So I'm going to put Stacy and Sam. And Stacy is 1 inch. Sam is 1/2 an inch. 1 inch is greater than 1/2 an inch. Okay, and then I need to compare Stacy and Jesse. Okay, so compare Stacy and Jesse. And it is important that you follow this order. If you reverse it, you're not following the directions. Compare Stacy and Jesse. And again, Stacy is 1 inch. Jesse is 1.5 inches. So my inequality is going to be that Stacy is less than Jesse. Okay, Stacy didn't grow as much as Jesse. And which cousin had the greatest growth in inches? So the person with the greatest growth is Jesse. And Jesse grew the most because he grew 1.5 inches. It is not possible for Jesse's growth to be the opposite next summer. He would not have negative 1.5 inches. Okay, a person's height cannot be negative. A child can grow or stay the same height, but a child does not shrink. So your answer should be no, you cannot have negative growth. The person with the most was Jesse. Okay, now we're looking at 8. Write the absolute value of each number in the statements below and describe its distance from 0. On Tuesday, the temperature in Juneau, Alaska was 5 degrees below 0. On Wednesday, the temperature was 2 degrees. Identify and describe a visual model you could use to represent this problem. And visually represent the problem using the model you identified and described in Part B. Okay, so take 3 minutes and answer part A's, B, and C, and then check back in at the end of 3 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay, so we're going to create our number line first. Okay, and I'm going to record the points that we have. So I've got -5, that's below 0. And then I have 3 degrees. Sorry, 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so here's your visual number line. And we need to say, describe its distance from 0. So -5 is 5 units from 0. And then the temperature was 2 degrees on Wednesday. So I'm looking at the distance. If I have 5 and the temperature was 2 degrees, what was the distance that you had for that? And the distance is 3. Okay? So if I have the absolute value of -5 and it is 2 degrees now, you're going to have to move 3 spaces to get to the 2 degrees. Identify and describe a visual model you could use to represent this problem. You could use a vertical number line to represent the model because we're dealing with temperatures and this would look like a thermometer. Okay? And you've got your amounts that were mentioned here. And if I were to put a -2 here for the absolute value, you would have 3 spaces that you would be moving here. Okay? 3 units that you would move from here to here. And that is the end of the work that you have. So make sure your name is on your paper, and Miss Andrew is going to collect the papers. So again, I am sure that you did a good job in following directions, and I will see you on Friday.